Welcome to Brother, the Masonic podcast with Neil Thomas Allen and Taz Bachu.
Hello and welcome to Brother, the Masonic podcast. My name's Neil Thomas Allen and I'm joined as always in a very, very special building, in an auspicious occasion, by my co-host Taz Bachu. Taz, how the devil are you, mate?
Very well, thank you. We have a bit of an echo. We could actually probably sing this podcast and sound half decent.
Yeah,
how are you doing?
I am very well, yeah. So this is the first first podcast of season 3. So I thought it was right to do it with a bit of a bang, and we've got quite a bang to start season 3. We're joined as always by our two wonderful producers. First of all, over in the corner, looking very pretty with his Masonic Craft Beer Society lapel pin making its first outing, we have producer Josh. Producer Josh, how the devil are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm not bad, thank you. Not bad at all. If nothing else, I'm just enjoying the fact of being able to do things kind of in person again. So it's nice that we've kind of got all ourselves together. We've got all our kit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's nice to be able to do things rather than sitting kind of on a Zoom call and look at each other through a screen. So very much enjoying that.
I love your mask, by the way. What is it?
Is that a Norfolk
This
mask?
is the Norfolk flag. Yes, that's right.
Goodness gracious.
I'm actually quite pleased that you know that. Because it's officially quite a new flag. It was only adopted in 2017 officially. So it's a new kid on the block, but I'm trying to, raise some awareness.
Beautiful. And over my shoulder, standing in at 12 foot tall, is our director of videography and video, producer Jack. Jack, how the devil are you, mate?
I'm okay, just a bit stressed as we have this extra dimension to our recording days.
Welcome to season 3, my friend. Yep. Absolutely. Well, you go back to where you should be, and we will crack on. And it's only right to get started with the wine of the week.
Getting things started the right way. It's Wine of the Week.
Taz, what have you got for us this week?
So I've bought in a Chateau Meaume 2015, a Bordeaux Superior. My French pronunciation has got a lot better. I didn't have to Google Translate any of it. But unfortunately, I don't know if you've mentioned what building we're in.
Yeah, so we are at Freemasons Hall in Great Queen Street again. We are being treated again. So huge thank you to everyone at UGLE for allowing us to come and do this. So yeah, we are in a really rather lovely committee room. And yes, you were saying.
There's no cups.
Yes, because of COVID, there are.
So
cups.
we're all staring at the bottle of wine. But it's an absolute bargain. And just for season 3, I've got a northern price and I've got a southern price.
Right.
Because there is variation in price. In the north, this bottle will set you back £11.25. But if you come down to the south, you'll be paying £10.25. It's just a bog standard Bordeaux. It's 14%. It's quite savoury. It has a lot of tannins, which means that you will have a hangover
Marvellous.
if you have more than one bottle of these. And the serving suggestion is with beef and venison. So it's quite good for those of you that are in Masonic centres. It's quite good festive board red wine.
Fabulous. Right, let's actually crack on because we've got an incredibly special guest to kickstart season 3. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the United Grand Lodge of England and also happens to be the Grand Secretary. We're joined by the one and only Dr. David Staples. How the devil are you, sir?
I'm passably tolerable, thank you very much, and thank you very much for asking me on.
Listen, it really is an honour to have you with us. And yeah, we just want to find out a bit kind of more about you and your role in this wonderful organisation that we're involved in. So first and foremost, how did you become involved in Freemasonry?
I was a student at university, and a friend of mine would go out twice a term, and he'd come back after being away for 3 or 4 hours, having had an absolutely splendid time doing something. And he'd be dressed up in black tie, and he'd sort of pour himself through the front door of our student house with a big grin on his face. And about the 4th or 5th time he did this, I said, "Where is it that you go? What are these meetings?" And he sort of looked me up and down and said, "Well, why don't you come along?" And it all went from there, really. So I was, I think, 20 years old, second year undergraduate.
Marvellous. And what lodge were you initiated into?
So that was the Apollo University Lodge at Oxford.
Fabulous stuff.
My dog's called Apollo. I love that name.
Good name.
The best lodge name. So I think a lot of people would have seen you on the TV and in the documentary that was on Sky, and I think that was probably the first kind of large exposure you would have had kind of to Freemasonry across the UK. So what was kind of the path like from going from that to becoming kind of chief executive of Freemasons Hall and the United Grand Lodge of England?
Well, I think, I mean, the path first and foremost was one of being in the right place at the right time and doing all right in the sort of 9-hour interviews and 6-month interview process that you had to go through to get the role. It was, I mean, that documentary I think was groundbreaking for UGLE because it, for the first time, put a line in the sand and said, we're happy to talk about who we are and what we do. And we don't mind people coming in and seeing who we are and what we do. And I was very fortunate, I think, just to be tapped on the shoulder and said, we want to do a story arc, and you've been appointed as the DEP GDC for this year. Do you mind if we follow you? And I was quite happy in my medical career at that time, and I certainly didn't have my eyes on anything professional, Mason or in any other sphere, really. I was just pootling along doing my doctoring up in Derby and Peterborough. And I think that programme was a great success. It allowed people to see what we did, and more importantly, it stopped an awful lot of the fanciful nonsense that was flying around at the time as being credible. People could watch that series and they'd immediately know in their heart of hearts that we weren't up to half the nefarious things that people would make up about us. And I think we've gone from strength to strength since.
Definitely. I think from my point of view, it was an eye-opener as a Mason, because I've never gone to quarterly communications. I've never really seen what a Grand Officer does other than judge me from the corner of a lodge room. So I certainly thought that it was a massive step in the right direction for UGLE, and I think one that we'll probably talk about in terms of kind of subsequent campaigns and subsequent things that we've done. Yeah,
we're definitely going to get onto that. I think it's a statement and a testament to the new, kind of almost like the new age of UGLE, kind of stepping up to the plate. When my nan says to me, "I watched Sky One the other day and the Freemasons were on it." That's wonderful. And it's so nice for it to finally hit the kind of mainstream media in a way that wasn't portrayed with a particular bias for once.
I think we're very much in the transition period at the moment. Before 4 or 5 years ago, very little that came out about Freemasonry was positive. If we ever did hit the headlines, it would be to reiterate the same old stories, the same old nonsense. Over the last few years or so, we've been much better at opening up to the public and letting people know what we're about, and following that through by demonstrating not new things that we're doing, things that we've been doing for 300 years or so, but perhaps things that we've been doing just a little bit more quietly.
And I think also, I mean, I think we even spoke about you 3 years ago in our first ever podcast. I think our podcast came about and was created because I think much like your thought process is that we wanted to make Freemasonry available to everyone, absolutely everyone, be that man, woman, Mason, non-Mason, all around the world. So I think the shockwave effect and the ripple effect has happened, and I think people are becoming so much more comfortable with speaking about this organisation. So, from our little podcast, cheers.
Anything I can do to help.
So I want to talk about your kind of day-to-day, just as a CEO and Grand Secretary. First of all, I wonder if you could tell us a bit more about kind of what is a day in the life of you at work for UGLE, and how closely does that tie in to working with the Grand Master and the rest of the kind of exec, I guess.
Sure. So, I mean, my responsibility is really to run the business aspects of Freemasons Hall, and also to effect the will of the rulers and the will of the board in terms of the running of the wider membership organisation. And that translates to two main missions, if you like. The first mission is to modernise the administration of Freemasonry, to take this organisation and how it works from a place which was probably significantly behind your average membership organisation, and introduce the processes and the manner and the culture to take that forward into the 21st century. And then I guess the second main mission was a much more outward-facing one, which was to somehow bring about a change in the perception of Freemasonry. And I always talk about this in terms of changing the public perception. What do we need to do in order to understand what the public think of us now? And then what do we need to do in order to make sure that when they think about Freemasonry, they think about it in positive terms. They understand who we are and what we do, the enormous work that we do for charity and the enormous things that we have done in the past, over the past 3 centuries.
Alrighty, I think Taz.
I'm going to leave a little pause because I'm going to change the order of questions.
Oh, do it.
It leads really nicely onto talking about the Enough is Enough campaign, and
Yes.
I think we've spoken about kind of the documentary being that linchpin that really pivoted Freemasons into a more positive light. And I remember, I think, talking quite passionately about some of the press coverage that we got 3 years ago in, I think, maybe an extra or...
I think it was our first ever podcast. Me and you.
I think we had to cut most of that out, didn't we? 'Cause I got quite angry.
Yeah. I think we all did at the time.
But I think certainly from kind of my point of view and from Neil's point of view, I think the Enough is Enough campaign allowed me to feel a lot prouder of being a Freemason. And I think for the organisation, whether it's UGLE but also for HFAF or OWF, kind of on both sides of the road there, it showed that actually the kind of the parent organisation was standing up for its members and really saying, do you know what, these are really good people, we do amazing stuff. I think kind of what I'd like to kind of understand is what kind of led to such kind of a public, now is the time to stop, and that response.
I think exactly what you said, really. The Enough is Enough campaign was had in two strands, really. There was the part which was about galvanising the membership and showing them, as you said, that UGLE was there to stand up for them. It wasn't there simply to ignore all of the various rocks that were being thrown at them, our ordinary members, who, as you say, are ordinary people who, on the whole, do amazing things and have done amazing things for a very long time. And so it was about saying, we're not going to just allow people to say what they want about us anymore. We will proactively come out, and if people are downing Freemasonry and they're downing you as a member, and they're quite happy to say things about Freemasons that they wouldn't be able to say about any other group of people in society, UGLE will make a stand, and we will rally to their cause. And so an element of it was aimed at our own membership to make sure that was understood. And in drawing that line in the sand, you also give permission for members to start talking in those terms as well, and not to be ashamed or shy or quiet about being a Freemason, but to stand up for themselves, stand up for Freemasonry and say, actually, I'm proud to be a Freemason. Here's all the stuff that we've done. And then, of course, the second part was actually to say to those people who, with impunity for maybe 2 or 3 decades, had just been able to say exactly what they wanted about us, that enough was enough, and that they weren't going to be able to get free rein to say what they wanted to do, and people were not going to be able to publish whatever they wanted to do. And that combination in The Guardian of secret lodges meeting in Westminster, stuffed full of journalists and MPs, which turned out to be lodges that had websites and Wikipedia pages and had been reported on in the national media when they were formed in the 1920s.
Yeah.
Which didn't have any journalists or MPs as members, and which met here in Freemasons Hall.
Very accurate, that one.
So that headline scored 0 for 3, and we weren't going to allow it to stand. And we would start now standing up and challenging things that were that inaccurate and misleading.
It's very interesting because actually I remember I think it must have been the day after you wrote that letter, and it was published. I think you were on Sky News maybe in the morning. It might have been BBC News with Dawn Foster. And this leads me on to a question. And you were, she was asking you questions about it, almost in a way that she didn't particularly care what you had to say and wasn't kind of listening to your responses. And I kind of thought that it's quite an interesting point because, that's a bit of a metaphor really, because where a lot of people are quite happy to listen to us saying and proving all of the good work we do and all of these things and dispelling myths, I do think that, and this is kind of, my question to you is that, I think there's people that will still choose to believe what they believe, right? And I think my question was basically, going forward, obviously we've had the starting enough is enough question, right? Or point. Going forward, is there plans to do some sort of almost like an educational program where the public almost are shown what kind of how we do things off of the back of the TV show?
Yes, I mean you can talk to people who don't like you until you're blue in the face, and
Of
you
course.
may change the odd mind or two, but they shouldn't be the target. The target needs to be the people who know about Freemasonry, as in have heard of us, but really have no idea at all what we do. And we know that 40% of the public are in that bracket, so they're brand aware of Freemasonry, but they have no idea what it is. And actually to them, we say who we are and what we do, and they've got no preconceptions about us whatsoever. And they are a much more sensible ground for us to start explaining what Freemasonry is and what we're all about. And so, as we move forward from the combating the negative, we're not spending a huge amount of time on that anymore. We're spending much more time talking about the sorts of things that we've been doing during COVID, and that our members have been doing, the money that we've raised, how we've come out of our shells, if you like, to show the communities that we're drawn from what we're all about.
And I think, kind of off the back of that one, we've got quite a broad listenership. So there are Freemasons all over the UK, abroad, overseas. Kind of at this current point, Freemasonry has restarted, then it's paused, then it's restarted, then it's paused, and I think the future's a little bit uncertain. But kind of keeping that positivity and keeping that message at the forefront, what would be the thing that you would recommend to some of our listeners to kind of continue spreading the good news of Freemasonry? And I think kind of your advent to Twitter and kind of joining the social side of Freemasonry has kind of opened you up to the joys and sometimes perils of the Twitterverse. But I think there's a large Masonic community that are kind of behind UGLE, they're behind you. So what can those people do to continue kind of that positivity and pushing that good message?
Well, I think the first thing that you should not do is get into big online spats with people who don't like us. It's like the primary rule of social media. You never win an argument on social media. You can disagree, leave it there. In terms of what the ordinary everyday member can do, what is it that you enjoy about Freemasonry? What is it that you get out of Freemasonry? The sorts of things that you hear, the friendship, the support. What sort of members have you come across? The interesting people that you've met completely by chance, whether you're a guest in somebody else's lodge or when you find yourself sitting next to somebody at dinner. I remember when I was a student, one of my early dinners, there I was sitting next to this sort of 80-something-year-old chap, and I was sort of walking towards this chair with absolute dread, thinking, oh my God, I've got 2 hours next to this chap. What on earth are we going to find to talk about? He'd gone to countries I'd never heard of. He'd fought in wars I'd never heard of. He was one of the most fascinating people I'd ever met. And that's what Freemasonry does. It connects people who might not otherwise have connected. And I walked out of that dinner thinking, my God, what a fabulous organisation.
We've all been there. We've definitely all had that moment, I think.
So, those sorts of stories, the sorts of things that you have enjoyed, the sorts of things that you've got out of Freemasonry, how it's changed you as a person, how it's made you a better person, the sorts of things you've got involved in as a result of Freemasonry. These are the sorts of things that will win hearts and minds and that will change the perceptions of some people and educate the 40% of people who need to know what we're about.
can I ask one more question? Because I could chatter about this literally all day. You don't
Go
have
ahead.
to keep this in, Josh, but I'm just curious. I watched your interviews on TV, and I was infuriated by the questions and just the way that the journalists were really kind of probing you to reveal secrets, to kind of divulge what we do in meetings. And you kept your cool, and you were as cool as a cucumber. Did you do anything special to prepare? Did you do anything to kind of get into that zone of being like, whatever you throw at me, I'm gonna be cool, calm, and collected?
I think one of the good things about being a doctor, especially a doctor in a frontline service, is that you've had people shouting at you.
Yeah.
You've been pinned up against walls. It becomes an academic exercise in how you manage the situation. And so, people shouting at me don't faze me. People being rude to me don't particularly faze me. I've been there, I've done that. So, in my mind is going, right, what's he actually asking? What am I, where do I want to go with this? How do I want to get to whatever point it is that I'm trying to make? And you're right. If you've got a very aggressive interviewer and you keep your cool and you give honest, sensible answers, actually, you're not talking to the interviewer, you're talking to the 4 million people who are listening
Which
to the
is
interview.
exactly what you need to do.
And,
Absolutely.
You get people on your side by virtue of being a decent human being, and that doesn't often come across.
And I think
on the other side.
I think it annoys them more because they want you to lose your cool and they
Yeah.
want to trip you up.
Well, I mean, you're a better man than I. I remember listening to one of the interviews whilst I was cycling into work, and I got so angry that I had to stop cycling and just kind of pause for 5 minutes, because I thought, I'm either going to go into the back of a bus or I'm going to hit somebody on the pager. But no, I was just super curious, because I think
the medical training helps.
yeah, I bet.
Let's switch gears up a little bit. What do you think Freemasonry's biggest challenges are over the coming years?
I think membership, public perception, probably, yes, to a certain extent, how we are governed and run. Membership, because although we've made great strides in arresting the decline in membership that had been seen sort of maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, we are still just shrinking as an organisation. Now, interestingly, with COVID and with the things that we've been known for publicly over the last 6 months or so, there are a number of provinces that now operate quite substantial waiting lists. So we know that when the virus disappears, there's going to be 100 to 150 people who need to be initiated into Buckinghamshire.
Wonderful problem to have.
We know that we've got this cohort of people waiting to come through, and as long as we can keep them engaged and interested, that's a very, very good start. But what are we doing to engage our members who perhaps have gone through the chair and are looking for something more? What do we do with the new ones who are coming in and they've gone through their 3 ceremonies and they come out the other side and they're not quite sure what's going on at the moment? And actually, we're very lucky. We've got a membership working party chaired by an extremely experienced Freemason, Michael Ward, who's the Metropolitan Deputy Grand Master. And he is looking at this problem quite forensically. And he's looking at all the different sort of pinch points where we might lose people and the best initiatives that are being done up and down the country, and ensuring that they are spread out and shared amongst all of the provinces, so that each provincial Grand Master can sort of see down the menu of things which are going on and pick which ones might be a good fit for their province. So, I mean, that's an interesting problem, but certainly one of our bigger challenges.
That's inspired me actually to ask a question, and I think if I don't ask this question, I'll be remiss for the whole of the time. One of the things that I've noticed that has come out during this global pandemic is the amazing kind of communication and association between you, the Mark Masons Hall, kind of organisation, Duke Street, all bounding together to communicate kind of best practices and procedures. Talking about what a past master would do when he comes out of the chair and is looking for something else. Is there going forward, is there a conversation to be had between kind of, you know, the orders administered from Masons Hall, or do you still think that you're kind of thinking that it may be that after this it will kind of return very much back to standalone organisations that kind of operate in tandem?
I think over the centuries, relations between us, Mark Masons Hall, and Rose Choir have gone up and down. There's been good patches, there's been bad patches. An awful lot of that is based on the personalities of the Grand Secretaries and the equivalents and the rulers of those particular orders. Giles Shilson, who is Grand Secretary General for Rose Choir, I have known for years. He was in, I think he was, he was certainly around when I was initiated into Apollo. Equally, Ryan at Mark Masons Hall, we all get on very well. We will have, in ordinary times, a lunch once every 2 months or so just to talk through matters of mutual interest. Yeah, the relationship is good there. There are points of tension. The Grand Master has been very clear that, in his view, the first thing you join after the craft is the Royal Arch.
Of course.
Now, there will be people in Mark Masons Hall that weren't overly chuffed with that. And,
of course.
I got a rather stern phone call from Ryan afterwards saying, "What do you mean by this?" I said, "Well, I think the Grand Master's made his meaning reasonably clear." But that's not to say that we have any hold anything against or hold any malice towards those other orders. They are great fun. I'm in a number of them myself, and I don't see any conflict at all between people who enjoy their masonry going and joining other things when the time is right for them.
I think, just in case the Grand Master is listening, we all joined the Royal Arch.
We all joined.
We did not join any other Mark Masons Hall orders before we joined the Royal Arch.
Honestly.
Fingers crossed. So, I mean, we've kind of touched on the response to COVID-19 and how the orders adapted, but kind of in your opinion, and I guess kind of looking top down, how do you view the response of Freemasonry, the provinces, the UK kind of Masonic fraternity to the challenges that COVID has put in place?
I think it's been magnificent. We have not only raised over £1 million from our members and their families in a very short space of time, but we've taken a much more strategic view of what we want to do with that charity in the time of a national emergency. And so at the beginning, when PPE was short, UGLE and the provinces sourced tens of thousands of pieces of PPE and distributed it to nursing homes primarily and hospitals where it was really needed. Similarly, when lockdown came in, we sourced and donated over 1,000 tablets to let people talk to each other when they couldn't visit, and so they could actually stay in touch with their relative who was in hospital, who they hadn't seen in weeks. And similarly, in the later stages, as it became clear that domestic violence had become even more of an issue than it usually is, and we were hearing from the various charities that their referral rates had gone up by 100, 150, 200%. Again, we were there donating money and donating packages for people who were coming into these hostels, just to say, somebody out there cares about you. We recognise that this is a major problem, and we're only too glad to step in and do whatever little we can to help. And so I think it's been a very, very impressive sort of coordinated approach between UGLE and the Masonic Charitable Foundation. And for the first time, we've not been sort of particularly shy about talking about that to other people. And so we have gone out and we've said, here are some things that we're doing. It's not because it's special or it's new. Freemasonry has always been fundamentally involved in all sorts of charitable activities. But here's something that was much more topical, was much more needed and had a much quicker turnaround time. And it was done at a very, very local level. You saw Freemasons cooking meals for the homeless and the vulnerable. You saw people donating, I think, thousands of tons of food to local food banks. So whatever was needed at the time, Freemasonry stepped up to the plate and did something about it. And I think that's been a very positive for us as an organisation.
So what I was going to say about that is that actually one of the things I really liked about that, and I'm not just saying it because he's also in the room as well, but it's how the communications team here has actually disseminated the information, and certainly with the first rising emails that are going out to every single Freemason now, it's a real kind of new way of almost engaging and putting out a call to arms for things when needed. And I think that's been a huge positive, certainly from the feedback that we've received.
We are making great strides in professionalising the organisation. That does not mean that we are turning ourselves into some giant faceless corporation, but it does mean that in the things that we do properly, we do professionally, and we do well. And comms is something that's certainly taken great strides ahead, I think, over the last couple of years.
Well done, Sean.
Well done, Sean.
Such a suck up.
Okay. Look,
We just need a spot. I've got one more thing.
Yeah,
So
go
I think,
ahead.
I think the good thing also about COVID, and I think something that perhaps doesn't really get reported up and doesn't really get talked about, is that I think a lot more Freemasons have actually seen the direct impact of the work that they've been doing. I know certainly from my point of view, I've got family members in care homes that have had PPE provided by local Freemasons. I know a couple of kind of friends in the provinces have been kind of on the front lines delivering food packages, and I think our traditional charitable giving, the type of charitable giving that gets the most press are, you know, the air ambulances, the fire engines, the
Cyberknife.
squad cars, all of that type of all of those types of things. So I think actually, unless you're in an unfortunate position to have to be picked up by one of those, you don't really see that tangible impact. And I think,
Well, I think we've always thought of charity as money,
Yeah.
but of course we
Yeah.
know that
So
Freemasons
much more.
give 18 million hours of unpaid time every year, and at sort of national living wage that equates to £150 million worth of time that they're giving. And what we haven't done perhaps in the past is focused on what some of
Yeah.
our members are doing with their time towards charity, towards supporting other people, community action, community volunteering. And I think that's, again, speaks very, very well of the organisation, that
Massively.
we have that amount of time to give.
absolutely.
Sure. No, and you're absolutely right. It really, really does. Listen, yeah, we're eternally grateful that you were able to join us to kick off season 3, and you know, it means a lot to us that obviously we can find out a little bit from the horse's mouth, that, you know, how UGLE feels about certain things, and how going forward the kind of views are. But I think probably the most important question we need to ask, just, you know, from a personal perspective, in terms of Masonic achievements and, you know, your enjoyment of the organisation that you're representing as the Grand Secretary, what's been your greatest achievement in Freemasonry thus far,
Other than being on Brother Masonic.
other than being a brother, of course?
Well, coming a very close second to me here today, it's a really difficult one to answer. I am a very firm believer that as soon as you stop enjoying what it is that you do for a living, you need to go and find something else to do. I was extraordinarily lucky to be able to sort of pivot, I think, from full-time medicine into a role which presents me with all sorts of challenges, all sorts of problems to try to solve, working with a fabulous set of people in this building, and under a very smart and well-led board, and for some very, very nice rulers. And so, you know, my greatest achievement, I think, must be still to be here after 3 years, because you know, a number of Grand Secretaries who have gone before me have fallen foul of either characters or circumstances, and you know, I think I'm extraordinarily lucky still to be able to do this wonderful job, and I hope that continues for as long as I can serve this wonderful organisation.
Fabulous. And I think the best way to wrap this up, I think, would be to obviously, to all of our listeners, those watching on YouTube, downloading it or streaming it, what are some, you know, because obviously Freemasons are probably feeling a little bit cooped up at the moment, going a little bit stir crazy. What are some, from UGLE's perspective, to the listenership of Brother, what are some reasons to be cheerful?
Well, I think we probably have less behind us. Well, we have more behind us than we do in front of us now. next year, if the predictions are right, will be the year that things start to get back to normal. We will meet again. We will meet again as we have in the past. We will rekindle our sort of the Masonic rhythm of our lives, and we'll rekindle the Masonic rhythm of our lodges and our chapters. I think it was Thomas Fuller who said, the night is always darkest before the dawn. I mean, literally that's nonsense, but metaphorically, we all know what he was talking about. We are now starting to come out of this. Each day that passes brings us closer to regaining normality. That's not at some unspecified point, years or decades in the future. It's not going to be that long now. And, let's get there with good cheer.
Marvellous. I think that's a perfect little cap off.
That is awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for kind of taking some time out of your day and joining us for a wineless episode.
It feels very wrong.
I will get a bottle to you.
Very unusual, a dry meeting in Freemasons Hall.
Absolutely that. Cool. Well, listen. David, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Taz, over to you to recap our wonderful socials.
That has been episode 1 of season 3. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we really appreciate your support. If you would like to talk to us on Twitter, we are at Brother Masonic. Alternatively, you can visit www.brothermasonic.com to gain access to the YouTube recording and to see wonderful Josh is heraldic mask, Norfolk mask. Yeah, it's a sight to behold. And you'll also be able to gain access to our back catalogue, season 2 and season 1 of episodes.
And from all of us at Team Brother, with special thanks to David Staples, UGLE, we are Brother, you are too, and thank you so much for tuning in. Much for watching this episode of Brother. Please make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the bell to be notified whenever we upload a new video.
If you don't want to touch Neil's bell, you can go to www.brothermasonic.com and check out our full back catalogue of YouTube videos and podcasts.